Welcome back to Law Amendments. My name is Barbara Adams. We are now with our final two presenters, Bill number 464, Stronger Workplaces for Nova Scotia Act. I'm going to ask our next presenter, Mary Lloyd, to introduce herself and to share with the committee how she would like to be addressed.
Hello, my name is Mary Lloyd. I'm president and founder of Pictou County Injured Workers Association. You can address me as Mary or...
Thank you very much, Mary. The floor is yours.
Yes, I want to speak today on this bill. I'd like to divide it up into two. The Occupational Health and Safety Act, the provision there on harassment, we would ask that it be inclusive of WCB and the employer and the service providers, because the worst harassment that a worker receives is under the hands of the WCB. When a worker is injured, they are the best person at the workplace until you're injured, and then your life changes. So I think this section has to be inclusive of the workers' compensation and the treatment of workers who succumb to this harassment when they're injured on the job and how they're treated after the injury. On the second part, the Workers' Compensation Act, I would like to inform this committee that we feel this is very premature, given the fact that this report came without consensus. Myself and Peter Boyles, the two injured worker reps, have not agreed to this report. And so therefore there's no consensus, and to think that the first priority of this report is the return to work. Our priority is prevention. Prevent the injury. That'll reduce the cost. That'll reduce the harm inflicted on the worker. So the fact that this is the priority, throw workers back to work. Our position is, and always will be, that the accident be reported, that there be an investigation, and remedial action take place, and then on the say-so of the treating physicians or service provider, healthcare provider, that it's okay for that worker to return to work. But the emphasis is on quick return. It's not on safety. So the provisions in the legislation that exists now, the employer's obligations under 89 to 101 provide that there's penalties already in place. Section 84 is the one for workers which is utilized all the time. The worker is cut off. The worker is threatened. The worker is intimidated. We don't need any further. We agree return to work is important, and workers want to be back to work because they want to be receiving their benefits, but they can't be going back to work and further injured. And that's what's happening now. We know in the healthcare, everybody's short-staffed, so you're throwing the injured worker back into that, which causes further injuries or a worsening of their existing condition. A problem with the return to work is the forms that are used. All injured workers are claimed to be sprain strains. They're not. It's that form assessment that's utilized that does that. In the service provider, you go to, the employer sends you. They're not a medical person. They're sending you for your assessment, and it's done in a clinic setting which is hostile to the worker. I'm a healthcare provider. I don't know of any patients that come with handles and I can hold into close to me. And that's how you're assessed in these clinics. Everything's done with a milk carton. They put weight in there and they push you to find out what level of function is left. It does nothing about what the condition is or the diagnosis. It does nothing about what the worker's real capabilities or function is. It does nothing about the diagnosis. Everybody's labeled sprain strain, regardless if it's a concussion, it's PTSD, it's a broken bone, you're all a sprain strain under this program. So we urge you, this bill is premature. It's upsetting to us that this is the focus of this review, that the first priority is returning a worker back. What this means is that the worker, the board, the government, and the employer have failed that worker in the first place, that they got injured, because the prevention is not there. We want the emphasis on prevention, true prevention, and that's why part of the reason we didn't consent to this review is that the emphasis is not where they're supposed to be. There's nothing in this new review that's going to change anything that's going to really affect the worker. It's the same status quo. So we would urge you that maybe this part of the bill, the occupational health and safety part, go ahead, but the workers' comp part maybe be held for further review, because I think it's premature. I've also provided a written, because at first we were told we couldn't get into this law amendment, so I provided the written one. It's also been emailed to you, so I'm not going to go through it word by word, but it basically speaks to what I've said. So I would ask this committee maybe to take this back and say, are we premature here? And if there's any further questions, I think my submission addresses these issues. So,
Thank you very much, Mary. I'll recognize Gary Burrell.
Thank you for, we have the presentation written too. It's in all its details. So you were saying about the, with the review and the non-unanimous character of the review, and that part of the reason, if I understood you right, was you didn't accept the emphasis on return to work at the expense of prevention. But what about the rest of the reason? I'm curious about the your overall set of reasoning for not signing on to the review.
accountability.
Yep.
Accountability was our number one priority.
Oh, sorry. I have to recognize Mary Lloyd. I
I'm
recognize
sorry.
you first.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Yes. Accountability is the number one priority that the injured workers, and it's the two injured worker reps that didn't give consent. Accountability, or the lack of, is basically, and we wanted provisions made to Section 167 that if it's demonstrated the board acted in bad faith, that we would have a recourse. But right now, we have no recourses. There's no accountability. And as far as this piece of review, it's not going to change anything there. It's status quo. It's not addressing the big fundamental issues with the board, and it's certainly not addressing the benefits, because they put in provisions that only when the board can afford it. But 47 years, this Nova Scotia Workers' Compensation Board has had an unfunded liability. And yet, it's status quo. There's nothing in there pointing the finger at them that you've been doing the same thing and nothing changes. It's on the backs of workers by cutting and slashing benefits. And they're waiting for some miraculous year that we're going to have a good interest rate to reduce the unfunded liability. That's the only thing that's going to change here. But when the new legislation came in, we weren't in favor of it, but at least there was two provisions put in that place, 115 and 116, and it was stated clearly that this would never, ever happen again. At the time the new legislation came in 96, the unfunded liability was $267 million. It went as high as $695 million. There's provisions there that says there can't be a penny added to this, that the legislation is clear that this will never happen again. But they just compound it and keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it at our expense. The injured worker is living in enforced poverty because of a workplace injury or illness, and that's got to stop. This review does nothing to address that. So that's why we didn't give a consensus.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Mary, for taking the time to be here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for hearing me.
And our last presenters, I believe here, Peter Boyles. Thank you very much. Please take your seat. Peter, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the committee and just sharing with us how you'd like to be addressed during questions.
Yes, my name is Peter Boyles, and I am a councillor in the municipality of the County of Pictou, and also I work with injured workers. And Peter is fine.
Thank you very much.
No, it just, Mary seemed to sum it all up, but I just, what I don't understand about the whole thing is, you're here looking at some of the review committee's recommendations and that, but something that was never signed off on. There's not one signature on that whole document, and so I can't understand why the minister would even accept a document that's not signed. I mean, there's just a, I think it could have been a great thing for this province and for us. And I know that Premier Houston turned around and really, he wanted to see this, something be done, and this is why it was all started. But it ended up just like from day one, it was done, as far as I'm concerned, wasn't followed the way it should have been. It should have been handled, and so here we are today. We have them, they're rushing through some stuff here that we still have questions on, and we still have concerns about. I guess that as Mary said, the accountability stuff like that is just it's just bothersome that this happened. And that it was just seemed like the cards were stacked against the injured worker right through the whole thing. So I just wanted to come in and let you know that and explain that to you. And I can understand that you guys got to do what you got to do, but we really think that this could have been a great thing if there just had been a little better leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Are there any questions? I recognize Gary Burrell.
I understand, right? You have been a member of the committee behind the review.
I was a member of the review committee.
Sorry. I recognize Peter Boyles.
Oh, yes, I was a member of the review committee, sir.
Thank you. I recognize Gary Burrell.
So when you took the decision not to be a part of the majority report and to not sign off on the report, can you just explain to us some little more about what your thinking was? What were your main areas of disappointment?
The big thing was...
I recognize Peter Boyles.
Sorry. Yeah, the big thing was from the start, when the Premier said he was going to get this going and do something with it, he told us that Brenda Wilson at the panel, the Honourable Pat Dunn's office, would be the woman to talk to, and she would be able to lead us where we're going. But she was just left open backfield, and we couldn't get, the poor lady was not told anything. But we turned around and... again, I guess, sir, I went into a thing. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
So I recognize Gary Burrell.
I was just wondering if you would explain a little more about your thinking in why you decided not to sign off on the review.
I recognize Peter Boyles.
Well, nobody signed off on it. That's my thing, is who signed off on it? There's not a signature on it. And this is really bothersome. We were all told that we were going to come down here to a presentation of our work to the minister, and then at that time we figured we could explain to the minister if we had any problems or why we didn't want to sign or whatever. But instead, everything was stopped. Down came the chairman all by himself and presented, and that was it. And that was wrong. I mean, we turned around and we were put on this committee, asked to sit in this committee to do what we wanted to do, the right thing, to help injured workers, to help employers, to help everybody, to try and make it a better system, a system we all could be proud of. But we were sort of changed as far as the injured worker goes. I'm sorry, but I have to tell you that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Peter, for taking the time to come down here. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. That's all of the presenters that we have today. So I am going to ask for a motion.
Yes.
So I'm going to recognize Dave Ritzie.
Hey. Motion presentations on Bill 464, Stronger Workplaces for Nova Scotia Act, be concluded.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. I recognize Dave Ritzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill 464, Stronger Workplaces for Nova Scotia Act, be reported back to the House without amendment.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, everyone. This law amendment session is concluded. We are dismissed. We are adjourned.